This is Timothy Hall.
We did it wrong.
Oh, we did it wrong. Okay, you go.
Okay, okay. This is Gina Beavers,
And this is Timothy Hall.
and welcome to Unstretched. I
Well, that
don't
was a
know.
good one.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was a little inspired by yours, but we are going to get music for anybody listening who's like, I can't take this anymore. Are you crazy?
Well, I'm sure with our music though, we'll
This.
still have to maybe like record the intro to go with
Yeah.
the music
They'll
at some
still have to
point.
hear us saying, hi, this is, and they'll just have to get over it. Cause like,
Right.
we're still going to say our names. Okay. And we're still going to say the name of the podcast, but
But
probably more.
I really love how we've been doing this like 5 months now, and we still almost botch the intro every time. Which I'm
I
kind of like
know.
love that though because it just speaks to the whole unstretched ethos.
I get, we're not like not good at taking turns. Do you think that's what it, or what is
No, I
it?
think that it's different. We try to do it different every time, and
Yeah.
I feel like because that's the case, it's like,
Right.
wait, no, wait, did we say you're doing it or I'm doing? Like, there's always that like moment of confusion when the recording starts, but that's just the
Totally.
reality of like, anytime.
Yeah, and we're not born improvisers. I
No.
when I said that about taking turns, one of the most touching things about being a bridge and tunnel Jerseyan is that when you get to the tunnel, there's a sign that says, like, when you're on the Manhattan side, it says take turns because there are two
Oh,
lanes that come together, and one person comes from one lane and another person and we fucking do it. And it's one of the little like moments of humanity where I'm just like so impressed that like Jersey and New York drivers, like we could take turns like that, like coming
yeah,
through the
that seems
tunnel.
so unlikely. I mean,
It's like
my
so nuts.
motto in driving is traffic is a zipper.
Uh-huh.
Right,
Okay.
meaning
Yeah.
like you take turns in that way. Like one goes, the next
Mhm.
goes, one goes, the
Mhm.
next go. And if you treat
Yeah.
traffic like a zipper, then
Mhm.
it moves so much faster. But there's always that jerk who like rams right in or
Yeah.
kind of zooms in on the shoulder and then sort of pushes everyone out. And that's what
Mhm.
creates like often the traffic jam. It's
Totally, totally,
crazy.
totally. I
Which to me
know.
is like a
So,
very New York thing. So it's
yeah,
amazing
I'm
when
just
people do
impressed. Like,
take
all you
turns.
need to do is put a sign up and like people will actually follow it. It's very weird. Anyway, that's not what this is about. This is about teeth grinding. We were just talking about how we both grind our teeth at night and we both wear night guards.
Well, traffic can make you grind your teeth. I mean,
That's
I drive in and out of the city all the time because it's much easier for me to drive in and out. I'm on our schedule, and so I definitely think driving in general in the city
Mhm.
traffic creates a lot of teeth grinding. But in general, I've been a teeth grinder mostly my adult life. I don't think I did it when I was younger.
Yeah, I think it's like hereditary. My dad said my grandmother ground her teeth at night. Like it's almost
Really?
like a nervous thing that you may or may not even be able to control. It's
I'm a
like
teeth
yeah,
clencher. Like
clencher.
if
Oh
I get
yeah.
into something, I clench my
Hmm.
teeth. If I'm
Yeah.
like digging a hole or cutting
Hmm.
a saw like a chainsaw, like I'll clench my
Jesus.
teeth the whole time. You know?
Serial killer over here.
Well,
Sorry.
I have a lot of trees on my property, so I
Oh
do a lot
right,
of
right, yeah.
chainsawing.
Sorry.
But anytime I do that like I clench my teeth a lot, and then I realized
Yeah.
that at night I would wake up and I would be like clenching my teeth, and I'm like, well, why?
Yeah.
And I tried to use like self hypnosis to not do
Hmm.
it, but it's taken its toll that I've had a lot of crowns break or teeth
Yeah.
fracture, and I just had a little crown break off and to the tune of like $1,400 now because the whole
It's
thing
the
has to be
worst.
replaced with a special kind of crown for teeth grinders.
Oh my God, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, they have
Okay.
like
Yeah.
a crown that's like a much harder type of
Hmm.
ceramic, and but it costs not considerably more but enough that I'm pretty annoyed by the price tag of that. But that's the
It's
price of rise and grind.
yeah. Also, I was saying a time in your life where things start to fail, like at least that started to happen to me. I actually this happened to me last summer, and I went to like a different dentists, but they had a deal, and which is probably not
Like
the thing
five
to do.
crowns for, price of four.
But he sort of said like, I'm going to give it to you for half off if you become a patient. So I was like,
Oh.
oh, okay, totally. Made an appointment for like 3 months from then, and then kept postponing because I wanted to go back to my original dentist.
Mm.
So I kind of like swindled him a little bit, but
Dental trust is
yeah.
important. I went to many, many, many dentists in the city, but when I moved back to Warwick, I went to my like childhood dentist place and the dentist that I had been seeing since high school. And I was like, wow, why did I ever leave? And he is
Aw.
such a great dentist. So I really wouldn't go to anybody else.
Yeah. Well, see,
But I
guys, this
remember
was
that, the
so.
first, speaking, of critiques, the first time I broke a tooth was in a critique, and
No
it,
way.
some kid had handed out Tootsie Pops, and we were in the critique, and I was sucking on the Tootsie Pop, and I was like, how many licks does it take? And then you crunch it. And I
Yeah.
crunched the Tootsie Pop, and half of like a molar fell out. And I was like 24 years old. And that was my first like brush with, uh-oh, getting old here.
Mm.
And that my first time like having to get a crown, et cetera, et
Oh
cetera. But
man.
so critique can be tough as we've learned.
Yeah. Well, so how's it going over there in the chat? In the chat on the post
Doing
about
critique
critique?
land. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's interesting because one of our posts from the last episode was about critique and how we deal with critique or how we approach critique in school. And that post definitely went viral and got dozens of comments, kind of on both ends. Like it was my take, like on how I deal with critiquing students. But what I was talking about specifically in that clip, or moreover in the episode, was my approach to critiquing grad students who are more advanced and ostensibly are trying to get a professional degree versus how I approach critiquing undergraduates, especially like non-majors, which is a very different approach. And a lot of people took umbrage with my approach because they were like, that's so mean, or you would give me stress, or, it's so anxiety inducing, or art should, just be, shouldn't have to be explaining itself. And I'm like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
fine if you're maybe a hobbyist or you're, working in your own vacuum, or if you're an undergraduate maybe. But I was talking specifically for students who want to go into the professional world. And
Mm-hmm.
that was where I was like, okay, well, why are you really doing this? Like, what
Right.
what
Right.
is your raison d'etre? What is your drive? What is your meaning? Like, what, why do you want
Mm-hmm.
someone to care about this? And I was amazed
Mm-hmm.
that people were kind of like upset by that. Like they didn't, like, as if they didn't want to have to think about like why they're an artist or why they're making
Yeah.
something. And I thought that was
It's so
weird.
it's so strange because on the one hand you hear people say, "Well, we want more criticism, right? You want more be harder on artists. Like we want more like art writers to write more criticism." And then on the other hand, there were so many people that were like, "Go soft, don't critique," in the comments. It's just like a strange.
Yeah.
I think it's totally particularly for grad students appropriate to be like, how would you sort of defend this or talk about it? I mean, right? I think that that's completely like,
Yeah, well, one
yeah.
one one of our listeners reached out to me who's in a grad program, and he
Hmm.
was like, "Thank you for saying this because I'm in a grad program where everything is just good vibes. Like
Hmm.
everything, like all the faculty are just
Hmm.
like, good job. Here's an award for participating.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
how do you feel? Like, and he's like,
Yeah.
no, like challenge me. Like, he's like, I wish that someone would like actually take me to task on what
Right.
I'm doing and if it's working or not. And then in that same episode, I talked about the Julie Moretu show, and I was like, oh, she needs a
Hmm.
critique right now. And a lot
Hmm.
of people resonated with that because
Hmm.
they're like,
Hmm.
sometimes you become famous or you become very successful, and then no one
Hmm.
critiques you. Like,
Hmm. Right.
then people are
Exactly. Then you're
afraid
being
to, and you're really in your own head,
right.
and that, so
Yeah.
there's a need for it, I think,
I mean,
definitely.
I'm very like, this idea of a participation. I do think that there's a flip side to like, give me a tough critique, tell me what I'm doing wrong, which is that people want to go to art school and be told, like how to become a famous artist or how to jump through various hoops or
Yeah.
make this good for me, kind of like a very black and white sort of thing, which I would say like that's not possible. So I do think that that idea of like, nobody's going to tell you how to do any of this definitively. Like, it's like you're going to have to put together a lot of things yourself.
Yeah.
I always felt like in grad school, my different professors, I always go a little bit easy on, well, it depends on the program because I've visited grad school programs widely and they're all different, like in terms of what they expect from students, whether they're taking classes, like for instance at Cranbrook, they don't take any classes, they just have visiting critiques and group critiques, and then they have people come in from the outside. But other programs, they take classes, like Columbia, they have to take like different classes within the School of Art. And so sometimes it's like you go into someone's studio and they've had two people come in, they're regular advisors, plus they're taking multiple classes. So they've had all these different voices and they have visiting artists. And I just think they're a little bit completely like running around with chickens with their heads cut off because they have so much work to do, not a lot of time between meetings with their advisors to do it, and a lot of different, perhaps even contradictory advice. So I'm always like, this is a good place to, I do think it's a good place to explore and try to, because it is sometimes overwhelming to sort out all these different directions, like coming from different
But
people,
the minute you
you
get out of
know?
grad school, that's kind of over. Like it's like
No, it's
crickets, like
silent. Yeah,
yeah.
it's totally silent. But I also have, I've only visited, well, I did 1 year of graduate teaching at Columbia, but other than that, I'm showing up to a critique with no knowledge about the artists, like,
Sure.
I'm just like kind of walking in blind. And like the other side of it, I would say, as somebody who's I visited artist studios in grad school where I just thought they had like nothing going on. So it could have been like a moment for kind of a harsh, let me, defend yourself to me. And they ended up showing at like a top 5 gallery or whatever. And,
Of course.
so there is a certain level of like
Yeah.
what people expect from grad school, and how it's going to, I think for me, I always, those professors like Galen Gerber and I had Barbara Rossi and different people at the Art Institute 25 years ago, they were kind of giving me these like exit signs on a highway. Like this is one exit you could take. This is, they were giving me the lay of the land in terms of like the literary history of art. Like these are
Yeah.
the kinds of conversations that we have about this kind of work. Or like I remember Galen Gerber said, like, this looks like a lot of work, like this looks obsessive in a way
Yeah.
that was like negative to him. And so I struggled with that for a really long time. And then when I was out on my own, I was like, you know what? I heard that advice. I understand that that's a territory of art making and a conversation, but I'm just going to like reject that and kind of off-road off this highway. Like I don't
Mm.
have to take any of your exits. I have to take my own, but I'm happy to know where the exits are. I am happy to know where the conversation is. Like to me that's the most important part of like a graduate education is like just
Yeah.
tell me what's going on with contemporary like discourse, like what.
The first week of grad school, because I got my MFA from Parsons School of Design, and the first week I had a critique with Mira Shore. She was
Uh-huh.
one of
Oh,
the professors there at the time.
uh-huh. Oh, I love
And
her.
I was not prepared for like a real New York City feminist artist intellectual critique. And she really handed me my hat, like it was
Mm,
brutal. And she was totally like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Like, what is this about? Like,
mhm,
and it was very terrifying and it gave me a lot of anxiety, but it also lit a fire under my
mhm.
ass to be like, all right, well, the next time she comes in, I'm going to have answers for this, and
Mm.
I'm going to
Yeah.
have really
Yeah.
thought about it.
Yeah.
and and I also studied a bit with Jackie Bruckner at Parsons, and I remember I had told her in a critique that I wanted my art to have a direct effect on people and somehow change the world. And she kind of scoffed at that. And she's like, if you want to really help people and change the world, go shovel latrines down in New Orleans post Hurricane Katrina.
Holy shit. Oh my God.
You know, like I definitely had some tough professors at Parsons that were really like, this is no joke. Like, you're in New York City, you're in a grad program. Like,
Yeah.
we're not going to let you just skate on through here and,
Yeah.
you know, do whatever. And I appreciate
No.
that, because when I got
Yeah.
out of grad school, like I said, it's sort of like crickets. Like, you have to then keep those voices in your head and sort of remember what your professors had said and keep that in your mind, because otherwise, you know,
Yeah.
you can just get lost in your own thought.
Right. Well, and there's not going to be that much attention on your work for potentially a long time, you know, like to have
That's
that
it.
kind of feedback, unless you solicit it from other artists or you try to do studio visits and things like that. I do
Well, the
think
night,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, the
yeah,
nice thing about going to grad school in New York was that then most of my cohorts stayed in the city, like a majority of them.
yeah,
And then for a couple of years we would like get together in each other's studio and do like informal critiques because we were comfortable doing that. But then of course, like over time everyone's moved away and whatnot, and you have different groups. But it's good if, I
yeah,
know some people do keep those crit groups going longer, and it's good to try to
yeah.
do.
Well, I also wonder, like, I feel like, well, one thing I was going to say as a teacher in at any level, that keeping of that little spark of joy in a student is like super important to me, as like this idea of like however we're going to get there, and some people can't be pushed like that without feeling completely defeated and kind of useless, and they might be really good artists. Or so it's also a little bit about like, how do I spark this obsession in you? How do I spark, you already have it, you're here, but like, how do we continue this like passion for making things? And that can't always just be sort of top down like that has to
You
be,
know, that has
you
to
know what I
come
mean?
from inside.
Yeah.
And that's something
So
I
I think
often
that's
ask students is like, where's the
yeah,
joy in this? Like, if I don't
right,
see
right,
them having a
right,
good time making it, I'm like, you need
right,
to find a way to make,
right,
if you're going to make this sustainable, you need to
right.
make it fun for yourself as
Right,
well.
right. It has to be a little addictive. You have to like want to
Yeah.
do this long term. So but I'm saying also it can't be like enforced, like
Yeah.
from above, like, and I can't like beat it into you. Like you have to, so there are sometimes limits to like a tough approach,
Yeah.
but I do think it's also useful.
Well, the addiction is an interesting point because like I feel like I feel like my addiction in my art is to kind of always one up myself in some capacity. Like, I'm very competitive with myself. Like, I look at, the work that I did and I'm like, okay, how can I push this, progress this, keep this going, make it bigger, make it weirder, make it more my own, like insert more of my voice in it. And that idea of like, I need to do this. I have to do this. I need to keep doing it. And that's what that kind of like energy keeps me going. That is a kind of addiction because you get the dopamine rush when you achieve those kinds
Right,
of goals.
right. Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah, the
remember in your
talent.
studio in Greenpoint, Gina, when you started to make those big cubes, the sort of like
Oh yeah,
sculptural
yeah, yeah.
cubes. And I remember that was like a really new thing for you at that time. And I remember we had a conversation a little bit along those lines that you were like, I wanted to think of like, what more like ridiculous thing could I do? Like, how could I take this like to the next level? And you're like, I'm gonna make it like multi-dimensional, like on this big cube. And I remember thinking like, wow, she's really going for it. Like, she's like balls to the wall, like,
Yeah.
one upping
Well,
herself.
that was also like an art fair. That was for Freeze New York. And it was like, okay, I recognize that this art fair is going to be all painting, like thousands of paintings. And I'm making like, I think I made 11 paintings for that. And it was like, how can I show them that's not salon style? That's not like just boom, boom, boom in a row like everybody else. And I was like, oh my God, I can display them in these cubes and then they could just pop out of these cubes if they sell. Like they don't, they don't
Oh, were
have
they
it.
not sold as one like
I mean,
multiple
they
one piece with
theoretically
multiple?
they could have been if somebody had been interested in that, but like I had the flex. I was like, it's flexible either way. Like it can either go.
Oh, that I
And
didn't
then
know.
at some
Yeah.
point, I had someone who was like going to commission a cube with all of, that was a thing that never happened. But like, yeah, no, my idea was like these are discrete objects, but I just want to display them in a way
Oh,
that is a
cool.
little more exciting for an art fair than
Yeah.
just like, yeah. So, and then, yeah, some other
Well, that's
people.
necessary because, as we know, at art fairs, there's just so much sort of
Yeah,
repetition of how things are
totally,
displayed.
totally.
And so it's kind of a fun strategy to be like, well, how can I think a little bit more creatively about how I'm going to
Yeah,
display this
right. And I guess in some ways you're trying to stick out a little bit. I do have like early memories of working at food fairs and like early job memories working at like a gift fair or like a food fair when I worked at these different jobs. And so I always have that in the back of my mind. Like this is like a trade fair for art.
yeah.
And I'm trying hard to make it not that in my mind, even though that's so that was one way that I was dealing with
Well,
that.
that's always the fine line of art fairs is like, we know at base it's actually just a trade fair. It's like a basic trade fair. It's just for
Yeah.
like showing and selling. But there's now become this because so many people go to them and it's such a vehicle that most artists now think of like, well, how can I actually make it like a solo show? Like, how can I make it like
Right.
stand alone as this big idea? Which I'm kind of like, I think I get it, but I also think it's kind of sad because you put in all this work for like a solo type of booth, but then it's
Yeah.
only up for like 3 days or something, and it never gets really reviewed or written about or seen by like all your friends or other artists as
Mhm.
much. Like, and
Yeah.
it's much more closed loop kind of system, and I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
I feel
mean,
like it's weird.
it could be seen by a lot of your friends if they go to the art fair. Like some people
Sure.
don't go to art fairs, and it could be written about. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
not going to get like a solo like article about it. But I did notice, Glenn Ligon, Jerry Saltz had posted his advice to artists, which is from a book from 10 or 15 years ago. And he says something about like an art fair is not a show, which I think is good, good to keep in mind. And not so much even that it's like, it's just that maybe you don't want the art fair or a solo presentation at art fair to replace that drive to have a show, that drive to like maybe push into like an institutional space, or maybe you don't want in your mind that to take the place of
But
that,
I think it
you
has for
know?
a lot of artists. I ran into
Yeah.
an artist who shows at a pretty high-ish level gallery, but he hasn't had a solo show in years.
Hmm.
But when I was talking with him, he's like, "I'm so busy," and I was like, "Well, what are you so busy with?" And he's like, "Oh, I've got to do a solo booth in Hong Kong for the fair. I have to do a solo booth for like Paris Basel for this fair." And all he's doing really is just making art for like solo booth after solo booth kind of thing, but hasn't had like an actual full-fledged full dress show in like many years. And I was sort of taken aback by that, thinking, well, that I don't know, there was something kind of
Hmm.
sad about that to me. That it did. I mean, because for me, the most fun of being an artist is putting together like a full dress solo exhibition, because I think of it like I always fantasize like I'm like the Beatles making Sergeant Pepper's, or
Hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
like Led Zeppelin making this like concept album, that like I'm really making this singular body of powerful, conceptually interesting work that's this standalone thing that people remember for 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's a high for me. That's like why I do. That's what gets me up in the morning.
Right, right. Totally. Yeah. No, it's an art fair is not
It's
yeah,
not a show.
it's not a
I
show.
don't know how we got into art fairs all of a sudden. It's
No,
really.
well, it's also Basel this week. It's like an art
Oh,
fair
right.
the other
Yes.
week. Yeah, yeah. So,
So yes, many
um,
people are in Basel, Switzerland, but I've heard
mhm,
tell from
mhm,
some people who work
mhm.
at some larger galleries that some larger galleries are kind of starting to even sour on it because like the Paris Basel has taken over so
Yeah.
much, and that is like at a
Yeah.
better date for a lot
Yeah.
of people.
Mm-hmm.
And also of course Miami Basel. So now like the Switzerland Basel, which is like the
Mm-hmm.
OG Basel, is sort of
Yeah.
diminishing in some capacity.
Well, yeah, it's got to be. I mean, geographically, the Paris one it's got to be drawing a lot of the same collectors as the Swiss one, right? I mean, it's different
Yeah, yeah,
Miami
no, I
and
think it is.
Switzerland, but also I think collectors just get tired of the same, after doing Basel for 2 decades or whatever, or just like if they're in that loop, it's like, who doesn't want to go to Paris? Like that
Yeah.
sounds amazing.
I
I've
know
heard
in
that the
Basel,
food in Basel is not
oh,
great, and like
no,
who
no.
doesn't prefer? I mean, yeah, if that's
Well,
money is
also
the
right now
object.
Europe has been in like a heat wave that's like, I
Oh
mean, I
yeah,
just when I was in Rome, it was like almost kind of
yeah,
unbearable. So
yeah,
I feel like, going to
yeah.
Switzerland right now doesn't seem like the
Doesn't
greatest
really.
idea. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I still feel like from what I gather, people are still selling
Mhm.
there and it still
Mhm.
does, it's worth its salt
Mhm.
to a certain
Yeah,
degree.
I'm
But
sure. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Well. Speaking of the weather, this was my like welcome line. I met a bunch of artists and art people yesterday because I did this creative capital carnival.
where
And
was
so
that?
it was at Lincoln Center. So the LA artists, I
Outside
was like,
in the plaza
no,
or
no, no, I was inside, but I would meet the LA artists and I was like, did you bring the good weather with you? I was like doing that thing. Um,
small town?
but so basically it's a 1 day event that's held for all of the winners of the year. So like the 2026 Creative Capital grantees. And like in the morning, we spend a lot of time meeting with like, in our case, it was all curators. The film people meet with producers and
Oh,
different
wow.
production houses, and the performers meet with different theater produce different venues and things like that. So we met with them for like many hours in the morning, and then they do this screening. We had to like produce a 2-minute film. I think you remember me talking about that, about
Yeah.
the project, and then they screen all the videos for like an hour and a half.
So you have to sit there for
eh,
an hour and a half and watch everyone's.
Everybody's, which were, they're really brilliant. I mean,
Yeah, of
oh my
course.
God, I can give a couple shout because like sometimes, Creative Capital awardees go on to like be in the Venice Biennale, like Simone Lee, or win an Oscar, or win Tonys. Actually, there were Tony Award winners there. In on the performance side, there was also the director Charlotte. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her last name. Who directed After Sun? Did you see that movie?
No,
Do you see like indie movies? Do you watch indie movies at all, or
only
are you
Italian
into
ones.
it? Oh,
No.
okay. Yeah, this one was with Paul Mescal. It's a really brilliant movie, though, kind of autobiographical about her father, and it sort of takes place on vacation in the '90s. And
Oh,
so it's a beautiful like heartbreaking movie. Anyway, she has a movie that she's working on, so she was one of them. But the things I can give a shout out to, there is a documentary about Mexican, what is it called? Let me just, El Pueblo Salva al Pueblo. We Save Us. And it's a feature documentary that follows Mexican delivery workers in New York who, amid rising assaults and little support, establish a community guard to pursue justice and reframe their story. So this guy has been following delivery bikers around in New York City for 5 years, filming how they created this like almost like a union or a force to like defend themselves on the streets of New York. Anyway, I cry. I was like crying. It was so powerful. There's also an amazing opera. Sorry, I'm talking about all the stuff that's not art, even though there were a lot of great art projects too. But it's called Creatine Price. I don't know. Do you know Creatine Price? She's a drag performer. I think she's on Drag Race Paris right now, or Drag Race France, and
mm,
she's like an opera singer who's a little bit too opera for drag, like a real voice, and a little too drag for opera. So they've
she
made
falls in the
this
middle spot. Yeah.
yeah, so they've made this wonderful or they're making this wonderful live opera, which is really about this drag performer's life, but it's all done in the most beautiful operatic style and serious. And I was just like, this is going to be dynamite. So look for that. I think it's called, right now it's called Project Creatine.
We should
But
tell your uncle about it, who wrote the book on opera.
no, I know. I was like, if they invite me, because they were kind of positive once my video showed, they were kind of positive about my work and were like, oh, we really like your work and stuff. So I was like, maybe I'll get invited, or I'll definitely try to go see it, and I'll
Did
bring them
anyone cry or get emotional when they watched your video?
no, but there were some laughs. I'm going to post it on Instagram. There's also really, I mean, some of the other artists. We actually have a listener who I met, who is a winner, Jeff Ostergren, who
Oh yeah,
is based in New Haven, Connecticut, and he makes work
I love his
about
work.
yeah, pharmaceuticals and the patterns and the colors
Yeah.
of, and his video was really funny because he kind of shot it like a pharmaceutical commercial,
Oh, that's good.
which was really brilliant.
Did you get like a budget to shoot this video, like, or how,
Well,
or
they said you could use some of your some of your money to shoot
okay?
it if you
And
wanted
did they,
to.
was
So
there like for the people who came to this carnival event from like LA or different places, was there like a budget for them to fly in for that? Like, or is
that's a
that
good question. I don't
yeah,
think so. I think they were sort of doing it on their own.
okay?
Yeah. Um, yeah, there's the other project that I was sitting next to her most of the day, Kentura Davis, who's an LA artist who lost her home in the fires in Altadena, and a lot of her community members did too. And she's making these planters, these gardens out in front of people's homes. So anytime someone's like rebuilding, they can approach her, and she's using wood from this wood pile that they've salvaged from the fires to build these gardens for people at the front of their new their whatever they're building as their new property. It's just like a beautiful generative project. Like there's so many interesting things people are doing. Anyway, so we've watched all the videos, and then but it was like nonstop networking talking for like the entire, almost the entire day. And then we went to dinner, and it was almost like a gala. And at the gala, the people speaking, Bill T. Jones from the Bill T. Jones Dance Company, who's like a
Wow,
legend.
yeah, that's
Yeah. Fred Wilson, who was incredible, and Catherine Stimson. I'm not sure how familiar. She's a department head emerita at NYU, but she's a feminist theorist, and she was just like a stand-up comedian. She was such a character. She had us all like dying laughing. Anyway,
wow.
that's I hope that wasn't boring or such a. But I think what I love about it is that Creative Capital awards you money for a project that you propose, and then they try to also set you up with lots of conversations with curators, so that you can actually find a place to show it in an institution, because it needs to sort of debut within an institution within 5 years. So
Oh, but so they're ostensibly they're helping you connect
yes,
to a curator. It's not
yes,
like the
yes.
onus isn't on you to sort of have to do it from scratch, because
No,
that's
exactly.
difficult.
Yeah, no, exactly. You can, yeah. So
Because you could have
I
a
really
great
appreciate that.
project idea, but the institution isn't just going to be like, yeah, we'll show it. Like you
No,
have to.
exactly. Yeah. So, but we did like learn interesting things. Like curators were like, people send them proposals all the time, like unsolicited, for like, a curator at the Met or something gets a proposal from random people they haven't met. But they said they do look through them, and they do, so I thought that was interesting. They prefer people to sort of approach and try to make a connection and have coffee and develop a relationship first before actually cold calling a curator.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
anyway, it
Or
was a
I
good
feel like if
time.
you're going to cold call a curator, your cold call has to somehow be contextualized and make sense.
Yeah,
Like you've
yeah, yeah,
seen
yeah.
their work,
Right.
you know what they've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Your work has something to do with their interests. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
if you just
yeah.
cold call them out of total blue, they're most likely going to be like, all right, trash
No,
that.
no, totally, totally. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about it a little bit because Creative Capital is not an incredibly difficult application compared to say like the Guggenheim or something like that. And it's not as much money as the Guggenheim, but it's a great organization. They were founded, this is a theme that kept coming up last night was, they were founded in the wake of the NEA, used to
Oh,
offer individual grants to artists, and then that was canceled in the late 90s. and now I'm forgetting his name. He just recently passed away, but from the Warhol Foundation. This organization came out of the Warhol Foundation, and basically to bridge that gap that where the government, they just decided like we need an organization to give grants to artists since the government's not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
But people kept bringing up. Now here we find ourselves in another moment of like tightening and restriction and censorship from the government on a much different scale. Catherine Stimson was like, the late 90s, they called it obscenity, that they shut us down, or they shut the NEA grants down because of obscenity. And she's like, look at the White House.
Right.
If that's
Exactly.
not,
You think
if
of
that's
like,
not obscenity, then what
yeah.
is? Like, oh,
You think of
God.
Andrea Serrano's "Piss Christ." I feel like
Yes,
that was like a piece that got like
that was one of
90s
the
censorship.
ones.
Yeah, who I
Yeah.
just happened to
Yeah.
see him sitting in a cafe in the Lower East in the East Village the other day, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's Andrea Serrano." He has such a classic look. Like he is
Yes.
one of those artists who has
Yes.
a real signature style. And I was
Yes.
joking to Corey that like I never developed like I'm not the kind of artist who has like a signature style look. Like maybe a
Yeah.
baseball hat, but that's too generic. But like Andres Serrano like looks the same
Hmm.
now as he's
Hmm.
looked for like 30 some years or something.
Absolutely. Fred Wilson too. The only
Yeah,
thing that's
Fred
changed
Wilson
is
sort
his
of.
hair I think
Yeah,
he's in the East Village too. You might see
is
him
he?
around. I feel like I've seen him.
But I was trying to
Um,
think of artists who have like signature
yeah.
looks. Like I
Yeah.
feel like Julian Schnabel, like he,
Yeah.
but his signature look
Yeah.
is just sort of like a bathrobe or pajamas. But
Yeah.
but in general, like he kind of always looks the
Does the
same.
signature look, is it sort of a male thing because you're keeping your hair the kind of the same? Or
I
women, I
don't know.
think
Carrie
might
Moyer has
tend
a sort
to.
of signature look.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
she's like a like
Okay.
someone who if you've
Okay.
seen her once, or Polly
Yeah.
Apfelbaum, she has
Uh-huh.
like like
Yeah.
if you've seen her
Uh-huh.
once, you
Right.
always would recognize
Is
her sort of thing.
Yeah, is this my signature look, Tim? Am I keeping my hair like this for the rest of my life? Maybe I'll let it go gray, but it'll always be like really long. Yeah, I don't know. I change my hair too much to have a
I don't
signature
know.
look. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about other artists who have like signature looks. So who like I
Yeah.
feel like Klaus Biesenbach has a very signature look. He
Uh-huh.
kind of
Yeah.
always looks the
Yeah, yeah.
same.
Yeah.
Mirana Abramovic, speaking of Biesenbach, I feel like she kind
Yeah.
of has like a very
So she
signature.
has long hair. I mean, that's basically it.
Yeah.
She's kept her hair
Well,
long.
long black hair and kind of the
Yeah.
same
The same
style of
face.
clothing, same
They're
thing. Yeah,
keeping
it
their
never changes.
faces. They're
Yeah.
keeping their faces so
Alex
far.
Katz, I think, is sort of has like
Uh-huh.
that, like a
Yeah.
shaved head, gaunt look with like
Mm-hmm.
sports
Mm-hmm.
clothing or something is sort of signature. Like Peter
Yeah.
Howley always has
Mhm,
on like a blazer and like a
mhm,
button-down shirt that always has
mhm.
the same
He
kind
has
of like
like a
silhouette look.
oh, interesting. Yeah.
Who else? Who else?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like that's
Well,
a
we can
hard
do.
thing to
That's
track.
something we can
Like
like announce out to the Instagram. Like,
it could be
name
also
your
an
artist signature.
award. Yeah, some kind of award. I feel like you do need glasses. Maybe this started with Warhol. Like you need like a signature look might need like a type of
Oh, you know who else
glasses.
has a very signature look is
Yeah.
uh the guy like McDermott McGuff. I think it's McDermott who
Uh-huh.
lives in New York. The other one lives in Ireland, but McDermott
Hmm.
always is in like a three-piece suit with
Oh
like this
yeah.
amazing coiffed hair.
Oh, Gilbert and George, right? Don't they
Oh,
always
Gilbert
wear
and George, they
suits?
have a
They have
real.
a thing
Or
like
speaking of signature looks, David Hockney, like, rest in peace, art hero,
oh,
passed away last week. And
oh,
half of what people posted about him was not just his art, but his fashion, like his looks,
oh
like
yeah,
his,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
way that he dressed
totally.
was so progressive and sort of
Hmm.
idiosyncratic.
Can I tell a
Um,
really annoying story? And I'm sorry because I've really been like on one
is it
all this
about
whole
David
time.
Hockney?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to talk about him too. So let's
Oh,
move the
okay. So
conversation
I
now
was in
to
his
David
show.
Hockney.
Jonathan Griffin, who is an LA writer and curator, curated a show at Night Gallery like 2015. Jamian was in it. I was in it. I'm now spacing on the other artist. I'm so sorry, but I'll write it somewhere. And it was about Derek Bashir, who was he made album covers. I think he made some David Bowie album covers. He was like kind of he was more of an illustrator, but also an artist. And it was kind of centered around his work and connections to his work. And the one day Jonathan wrote me and said David Hockney was in because apparently
Oh wow.
he and Derek Bashir were friends. They were both from the UK originally, but they lived in LA. And
Like
he said,
Morrissey.
"What?
Like Morrissey.
Yeah, like Charlie XCX." He was like, "Oh shit." He was like, "Tell Gina I really like her paintings."
Wow. All
And
right.
I was like,
Mike.
I died. I was like, what I loved about it though was like I was making food paintings based, on iPad off my iPad, and he
Oh
was
right.
so into
Yeah.
using his iPad, depicting reality. Like there were these things that we had in common as artists in terms of our fascination with things, and I just I died. I was like, that's it.
Gina, that really is
Like
an
one of the
incredible thing. That's really pretty incredible. That
yeah.
I don't know if I mean, we almost could just like
Just
stop there.
and I know I'm sorry. It's really annoying in some ways, but
How,
I couldn't stop. At the time I was just like, holy shit. Okay, well, you have these upswings where you're just like, okay, things are looking up. Like this
yeah, if
is
David Hockney likes my work and tells someone to tell me that, then
yeah,
I'm doing something
yeah,
right. That's like the
yeah,
opposite of like a grad critique. It's like,
yeah, yeah. Well,
God on high coming down and being like, you're okay,
you're
kid.
on the right track. Yeah,
Yeah.
keep it up. Yeah,
So what I thought was interesting when Hockney died is all these people were posting about how David Hockney is like who introduced them to art. Like they,
oh,
first saw his work and they were like, "Oh, art, like contemporary art, like that's so cool." And I wondered like if you had your own David Hockney story of like when you first discovered his work or how you sort of first saw his work
yeah.
or
I
how
feel like I saw it on. I think I saw it maybe at SF MoMA or something when I was like a lot younger. Like Um, yeah, I loved this idea of the like abstraction but realism. Like he was like, some of those classic works where it's like flat but
right, like the bigger
real.
splash painting that's
Yeah,
like
that
the
type of
splash is so
yeah, I don't know
abstract.
if it was exactly that painting or if it was, but that combination of like,
Yeah.
yeah. What about you?
So
Boy.
I first came to David Hockney's work when I was living in Florence, Italy, actually, when I was like 20, 21, and immersed like in, Renaissance studies and Renaissance art. And I was really starving for contemporary art. Like I was like, well, I
Mm.
want to know what like contemporary art is now. And the only place at the time you could sort of access contemporary art in Florence really was at this place called Centro Pecci, which is in a little town called Prato, which is like a half an hour outside of Florence. And they're a contemporary art center, and they have a library of catalogs and monographs, mostly of contemporary art. And it's open to the public. And so on Thursdays, I would take a little bus, a little sort of regional bus to Prato and spend the whole day in their contemporary art library, just pulling monographs and looking through
Oh,
them. And that was actually how I got my real contemporary art education. But one of the earlier books I found was David Hockney's The Way I See It. And in that book, he talked about being a gay artist, making gay work in the 60s when nobody else was really doing that. And that really captured my imagination as like, wow, what an amazingly progressive agenda he had. And that's what I think made him so important, at least to me, is that he was depicting everyday gay life, like two men showering in a domestic setting and putting it on a big painting like Mantegna would do, or
mm,
Velasquez or Picasso. And that was really politically radical
mm.
for the time. And so I sort of discovered Hockney as what I thought was like this really politically radical painter, but who also made really beautiful paintings, just like you were saying, that were like abstract
Yeah,
and
like
realist
formal.
and flat and
Yeah.
cubist. And he just had this insatiable exploration for the medium of not just painting, but image making. How do we make
Hmm.
images? How do
Hmm.
we piece them together? How do we view them? And and so that book became like such a touchstone for me, also just as a gay artist, like how to be proud of myself as a gay artist and how I'm allowed to put gay shit in art, and like
Hmm.
Hockney sort of opened the door for me. But more
Hmm.
importantly, I don't want to, talk too long about this, but more importantly, was he did a series of drawings and prints inspired by the poetry of C.P. Cavafy. And that was how I discovered Cavafy's poetry. And Cavafy's poetry has become like the kind of central muse and inspiration for my work,
Oh,
like in the long
okay.
term. So I kind of
Yeah.
have to thank David Hockney for opening the door to C.P. Cavafy's poetry, which Cavafy was doing in poetry in the 1920s and 30s, what Hockney was doing in art in the 60s and 70s. So Cavafy's a real queer precursor to like living out loud and writing about your gay life and sort of in a very open way. And he was doing that in Alexandria, Egypt, sort of at the turn of the century in the early 20th century. So I have to thank David
Wow.
Hockney for that. But unfortunately, I don't think
No,
David Hockney ever saw my work.
I honestly was thinking as you were saying this that this is a better story than my story. Like your story, like your connection to David Hockney and how meaningful that is over time, and that's cooler than a little feather in my cap. Like I think
But,
it's
I need to
so
also
much more
mention
important.
another very influential gay artist who died only a few days before Hockney, was Duane Michals, who is a
Oh my
photographer,
gosh,
who is
yes.
one of my favorite artists and also for me a huge inspiration because Duane Michals did a whole portfolio on Cavafy, on like using the
Mm.
poetry of C.P. Cavafy as his inspiration. And Corey and I were lucky enough to buy that at auction at really cheap a couple of years ago. And it's
Oh
like a
my
prized
God.
art possession, is this like
Um,
portfolio of photographs that Duane Michals had made
oh
about
my
Cavafy.
gosh.
And so Duane Michals passed away at like 98 years old or something, had a beautiful life, very alternative, very bohemian, sort of early photographer of like gay themes, did his own thing, beat to his own drum. And just only about 3 months ago, I sat next to him at a theater, in a darkened theater, and there's one person between us. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting like one person between Duane Michals. And we shared like a smile and a giggle, but I
Mm.
didn't have the guts to be like, oh my God, Duane Michals, I can't believe it. You're right here. And then
Oh,
and then I went up to DC Moore. This is how nerdy I am. And because he showed at DC Moore, and I went up to DC Moore and I made a beautiful envelope with some catalogs and zines of my work. And I
mm-hmm.
wrote him a note and I was like, Duane,
Mm.
I just sat next to you and we smiled at each other at this theater, but I was too embarrassed and scared to say hello. But I just wanted to share my work with you because I've been so inspired by your work, and I want you to know what I do. And so I left it at the gallery. And you know what? I don't know if he ever got it or
I'm
whatever,
sure he did.
but that's
Yeah.
that's part of
Oh,
reaching out to your art
I
heroes.
love it. It's so cool. I'm sure he got it. The gallery was like somebody left something. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
That's really
yeah.
cool. Oh my gosh.
So
Wow. Well,
Duane
it's like,
Michals, David
yeah,
Hockney,
really.
great, great artists.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. I love that you have that portfolio. That's like the coolest
Yeah. And
thing.
actually,
Yeah.
just on Friday night, Corey and I spent Friday night at the Strand bookstore, which is one of my favorite like Friday night pastimes. It's just to
Oh, fun.
spend like go through all the old catalogs and all the used art books, and I found a Duane Michals monograph that had like everything in it,
Oh my
and
God.
it was like the only one, and I was like, well, I have to
I
buy
have to
this. And
get
it just
this.
died like 3 days ago
Oh
before.
my God.
Um, and so I felt like that was, such a prize to find because I mean, now I like to fantasize that now it's worth $20,000, this book,
Yeah, yeah.
even though it cost me $50. But I
Yeah.
gladly paid the price for it because
Yeah.
now I have that as like a little
Now you
treasure.
have that. Would you sell if it was worth 20,000, would you sell it? Well, 20,000's a
Probably,
lot.
no, I mean, it would never be worth that much money. I don't know. Like, I mean, I definitely collect books. I have a lot of
Mhm.
first edition, like monographs, and
Mhm.
some of them are worth,
Mhm.
$2,000, but that's not really for me like worth enough to sell. And a lot of
Mhm.
them I use, and so I've kind of
Mhm.
treated a little poorly. Like they're in my
Mhm. Oh,
studio. I
right.
open them up, I
Yeah.
look at them. So I don't know if
Mhm.
they're worth really all that much. I mean, I use
Mhm.
that stuff. I don't. To me, it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, like don't touch it.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I love going to the
Wow.
Strand on like a Friday night and
So
flipping through
cool.
all the old like they have a whole section of weird, solo exhibition
Oh,
catalogs,
yes. Yes.
1988. And you can just,
Yeah.
I've discovered
Yeah.
totally forgotten artists through perusing.
True.
Actually, I don't want to give it away because I don't want everyone to go to the Strand.
I know, I know, but I remember also having that feeling of like I think about that shelf at the Strand sometimes
Yeah,
of all those
love it.
old catalogs and all of the artists and the artist dreams. No, I mean they probably had
I
great,
kind of I'd like to bring
yeah,
a catalog of mine, just stick it in there
totally.
because
Why
I feel like
not?
there's people who are discovering
That's
shit there. I've
true.
discovered
Totally.
so much stuff from
Yeah.
going through this Strand. So I think actually best case scenario is that your catalog 25 years from now ends up at the Strand and
Ends
some
up,
young kid
yeah.
finds it and then is inspired by your work.
Yeah,
It's like
totally.
old
I'm gonna
school
put
internet
my.
stuff.
I know. I feel like there wasn't a level of. I came to understand like, oh, there's a huge universe of artists out here who have been working this whole time, or have worked, or had careers, or maybe they went somewhere they didn't that you don't even know about. Um, that was like an important thing. I think it's like everybody should go there to that shelf and not fuck with Tim's, not buy anything, but just look at them
No,
and
I don't
have
own
that
it. Not for me
realization.
alone. Yeah.
Yes.
But it is
Yeah.
definitely like it's one of those things that's like such a classic New York thing to do that probably before you know it, like will be over and we'll say, oh,
Yeah.
wasn't
Oh
it
my
wonderful
God.
to go to the Strand and like
Oh my
flip through
God, the
those old
Strand. I'm
catalogs?
so happy the Strand is
Yeah.
still there though. It really
Yeah.
is still holding on. People love it. They love to go there. It's become a tourist destination.
Oh, it's definitely a tourist
Yeah.
destination. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, think about that. There was that terrible like Barnes and Noble, that massive Barnes and Noble on the north part
Of
of
Union
Union
Square. Yeah.
Square.
I
Yeah.
feel like that closed or was closing, but I think it's lived another life now. I think it's
Oh,
been like
is it open again? Is it
I think
there?
it's opening again. I haven't walked past it in a while, but I did read
It's
something that
still
like
there?
I mean, I had read recently that like
I just
even
never.
independent bookstores are on the rise. I mean, my friend Troy Chatterton, who's Sam Wilson of the Klaus Gallery's partner, he just
Hmm.
opened in the East Village a cookbook shop.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like going gangbusters. It's
Oh
called
my God, I'm
Wild
so
Squirrel
happy.
Cookbooks.
Yes.
And I've gone in there a number of times and it's like
Mm.
so crowded. And
Oh
even
my
like Isaac
God.
Mizrahi is like,
Oh
blogging about it.
yay.
And, everyone's
Oh
excited to support
yeah.
small booksellers right
Cookbooks are a
now.
really big deal. I know this from Keith because Keith has like a quite a stack of the actual book, not just like the New York Times app or
Mm.
finding recipes online, but actually like, having a book to read about the cuisine and like all of the it's like people who are, yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, and
And
Troy had
yeah.
worked at Three Lives Bookstore, which is a
Oh,
very
okay.
famous independent bookstore in the West Village. And his interest sort of grew in cookbooks, and he
Mm-hmm.
became really good friends with Alice Waters and other like
Mm-hmm.
cookbook
Mm-hmm.
authors and publishers. And I eventually he was like, well, people were like, well, you should have a cookbook shop. And I think
Mm-hmm.
he was like, yeah, I should. Like, this is a great
Mm-hmm.
idea. And he did a Kickstarter and raised some money to do it and got a beautiful space on 13th Street and just made it the most charming, sort of classic mom and pop type of bookstore. You know, if you
So
really
cool.
pass through the East Village, you have to check
Have
out
to go
Wild's World.
there.
It's
Yeah,
absolutely so charming.
I've been sending it to people I know who are foodies who are really into cookbooks to
Oh,
go check
good.
out in the city, and yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I hope that like bookstores, I don't know, I've been noticing this with thrift, that thrift is like kind of back in a really big way. It's like a very surreal experience to go thrifting. I'm sort of thrifting in a big way for the first time in a like a
Yeah.
lot, probably since college or, early
Well, it's so much
2000s.
more sustainable. So from an environmental
Exactly.
standpoint, it is, but also so much stuff is still good and it's still there.
Exactly.
And, you
Why
know,
don't rather than a landfill? And the funny thing to me is seeing all of the like early 2000s or like all the the brands by the people like Lauren Conrad from the Hills, like all of this like early 2000s, so when I used to go thrifting, it was like 70s and 80s clothes. And now it's like early 2000s, even 10 years ago, maybe you're getting a Banana Republic shirt that looks perfectly
can you
fine. And, you
can you find an
know,
X-Girl t-shirt at those thrift stores? If you do, I want it.
A what?
Do you
An
remember
ex?
X-Girl?
Oh
It
no.
was part of like a store in the East Village in the late '90s in New
Oh,
York. It
oh,
was
oh,
part of like
oh.
Liquid Sky and that whole like rave culture in New York.
Oh. It's not the thing, Patricia Fields or whatever. Do you remember that?
No, yeah, I
Oh,
do
okay.
remember. Shootings, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I
yeah.
just thought it was so funny. Um, yeah, I don't know, I'm enjoying it and I feel a lot better about, if we're going to have fast fashion, not if we're going to have it, but this is a better version of fast fashion, which is like, and then you just take your clothes back when you don't want to wear them anymore, you donate them back to a thrift store
Yeah,
and
and I'm
someone
sure
else
the
will grab
thrifting
them.
in suburban New Jersey is really good because there is a lot of wealth there, and so probably
Hmm.
there's some like high quality stuff too.
Hmm. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
$6 jeans that were like $200 like a year
exactly.
ago.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. So,
Anyway, so I wanted
um,
to tell you how the other day I went to Chris Boja's show at Mrs.
oh
Gower
yeah,
because Chris
totally.
was doing a talk with Jesse Firestone, who's a curator and has worked with Chris's work before. And it was really great to go out to Mrs. Gower. I must admit, I'd never been out there. It's in Maspeth, Queens. It's a little bit of a hike. Took me like
Mm-hmm.
an hour to get there,
Mm-hmm.
like a bus to train to a bus to a car. But it's a really cute space. And of course, the gallery has a great programming. Chris's show, fantastic. And a lot of the topic was like the sort of vacillation between the design world and the contemporary art world, which
Mm-hmm.
Chris sort of like sits in between. Although I think his work is a little bit more in the contemporary art world, and I see it more in that way. But I like that he sort of is sticking his hand in like these multiple pots
Mm-hmm.
or genres, which um, because his work
Yeah.
is very crafty, but also very well crafted, but also really conceptually interesting about the history of Fire Island, the sort of aesthetic history of design, like a queer oriented design, sort of like sort of weird spirituality that's in it as well, but also weird icons from like he took this motif of the beetle that was on a
Mm-hmm.
Prada shirt from like 1997 or something, and he's like turned that into a beautiful powder coated sculpture. And so it was really great to hear him talk about it, actually talk to him about it. And he gave a big shout out to Unstretched because he's like one of our
Ah,
biggest fans. He's like, I
that's
have an
so sweet.
unhealthy parasocial relationship with Tim and Gina. Everyone go listen to the
Yeah.
podcast, which was really cute. That and so then afterwards, like a lot of people came up to me and were like, "Oh, tell me about the podcast." So it was fun to also
Oh,
talk about
that's
that
cool.
too. So yeah, so that was a really fun thing to go out to Mrs. because I love Elizabeth Attenbury who shows there, and Nicole Pottinger is a really great artist.
Oh
They
yeah,
show a lot of artists who are
yeah.
really into making stuff. Like there's a real
Mhm.
sense of like
Rose Nestler,
yeah,
yeah, a
Rose
friend of
Hensler,
mine.
exactly. A real
Yeah.
sense of like craft and building something not just beautiful with your hands and but with your ideas with thoughts behind them too. And so that's what I think makes that gallery a pretty
Yeah.
good
I went to Rose Nestler's show on the Upper East Side, which was with Public Gallery. They had like a pop up, and I rode the train back with the two women from Mrs. And they were so cool and nice and funny. And I was just like, whoever is working with them is super lucky because they're just
Yeah.
great, great people. And
Yeah,
yeah.
and even though the space is like really far flung, it's a nice space. But they
Mm,
also do art fairs and stuff, so I think
yeah.
they definitely built a world
Hmm.
around what they're doing. And I believe that Sarah, who is one of the owners, went to Hampshire College, which was also where I had gone
Oh,
for a
yeah,
year.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
always love supporting people who are like Hampshire College related world.
Yeah, that's really cool. I went to Powerhouse last week. Well, this has just been kind of a tough, like an insane week of like late nights, because I was out. Like the Creative Capital thing last night was, I mean, it was 12 hours. Like there was a
Oh my
gala at
God.
the end of the night. So I was, yeah, I didn't get home in bed until midnight, and then Saturday night was the Knicks win, which was like
That was fun.
absolute,
That was super
absolute
fun.
mayhem.
I cried.
um,
It made me so proud to be a New Yorker. Like I deeply,
oh
you know,
yeah,
like I just, I'm a big Yankees fan. I'm not necessarily a
yeah.
Knicks fan, but I just love the idea that New York got this win after like 50
Mhm.
some years, and it just felt like, wow, the city is on an upswing between Mom Donnie winning and, I moved
Yeah,
back to the city in the same year and
yeah,
the Knicks win. I just feel like
yeah,
we're all on an upswing. I
yeah,
feel really good about
yeah.
it.
It's really great. Well, Keith
Yeah.
and I, we got back to our car at our train station at like 2 in the morning.
Oh shit.
Um,
Was it
yeah, I
still,
mean, it was,
they didn't
well,
destroy
because
it?
we had to like, we were on 28th and 5th. We had to take the train into Penn. They wouldn't let us walk over. So we had to go down to 23rd and take the train because it was such madness. And so we get back at 2 a.m. and we're like 3 minutes from home as far as the drive. And these two like 19-year-old, like these college kids were like, they're a little drunk and they were like, our phone died. Can we charge our phone in your car to call an Uber? We live like 30 minutes away in Caldwell, because like normally maybe I would drop you off if you were 10 minutes away, but I'm not. Two in
Yeah.
the morning, I'm not driving. So we were like, sure, you can charge your phone. So we hung out in the parking lot at our train station for half an hour with these college kids
You could have
talking.
driven them a half an hour in that time.
No, it would have been an hour. Like by the
Oh,
time we got back, it would have been.
oh,
Um,
right.
but we were just like smoking weed in the parking lot with these teenagers, like talking about the Knicks as though we were like, fans forever. Like I was just
Right.
like, and then I'm like, so your mom? He's like, I'm just gonna text my mom and let her know I'm okay while it's charging, if that's okay. And I'm like, sure. He's like, well, how old are you? My mom was born in '76, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm older than this kid's mom. And I'm like, what the hell are we doing? But it was one of those wacky nights where you're just like, anything could happen. This is so weird.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
out of a movie,
The
but you did your
energy.
civic
Yeah.
duty. You were a good neighbor.
Yeah. We
I
gotta let
like
these
that.
like Jersey boys get home. Yeah. To their
Yeah.
fams. Yeah. In Caldwell.
Were they
Um,
cute at least?
I mean, I don't know. That's too young. I'm sorry. That's too young.
I don't know about that.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. I'm not really like a young sports fan. It's not really ringing
the
the
bell
bell
for you.
for
Okay.
me unless it's like they look like Paul Mescal or something.
Wait, tell me about the Powerhouse thing because you had mentioned that to me, and I
Oh
thought that
yeah.
that seemed really interesting.
That
What was
was a
that about?
really wonderful. So it's a show that Eric Fischel had put together, I guess, in Long Island and East Hampton or wherever, Sag Harbor, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think East Hampton.
Yeah. So he was there. I introduced myself to him and like congratulated him because it's such a cool
Was he
show.
friendly when you introduced
Oh,
yourself to
he
him?
was so friendly and so serious and knowledgeable. Like we were talking, he was telling me about the different artists. So it's the concept of the show is the arc, and so they're all sculptures of animals. But so like that's the unifying thing. But it's like spread out in their massive space, and there's everything from like a Ryan Johnson kind of spinning dog eating its tail to like these incredible Deborah Remingtons. Do you remember Deborah Remington? Like
I do.
I had not seen one of those works, I think, ever in person, and they're just so beautiful. And like, talk about using, last time we were talking about B words, like using available materials. There's this incredible seated lying down horse that's just made out of wood and mud that is so expressive and beautiful. And he said that it was in the Whitney collection, that it hasn't been seen since the 70s, and he managed to get it.
Wow.
I'm trying to think who else. I mean, it's a really fun show. They also have a whole play area with like an arc that they built for kids. So like,
Wow.
especially if you're an artist in Brooklyn and you want to do something with your kids, I feel like that's a really great show. 'Cause it's so
Does that
animal,
have like end times vibe? Because I think of like Noah's Ark is like signaling like when God is angry with the
yeah,
people and wipes out civilization.
yeah. That's the kind of, it's
That's the
sort of
sort of like
an
undercurrent of this?
Yeah, I think so. But it's also beautiful because that space at Powerhouse, which I know you've been into for the art
Yeah.
fair, is so raw, and it has so many like metals and brick and like that materiality in the cement floor, and then all of the different materials. And it's fun to go around and try to figure out, like there's a Nari Ward sculpture, and you're like, aha, like there's a tire at the base, like to go through and try to figure out whose animal. There's some sweet Rob Pruitt cats that I was just like, oh my God, I would, very modest size cats. There's, what else? Why am I blanking? I'm sorry. But just, it was beautiful.
So was it an opening? Like you went to the opening?
I went to like the opening party, and they
Okay.
had the other thing they did was they had like a catwalk where they were it was like a dog adoption where they had dogs. They were kind of parading these dogs down to kind of talk about them for people to
Oh,
um
wow.
which was like such a great idea,
Did
and
you
also
adopt a dog?
heartbreaking. No, I wish I it was hard to even look at them with their little vests on and not,
Yeah, that is
it was
hard.
almost like a little heartbroken, like,
They should have
but
also had an adopt a cat and put the cats in little harnesses and walk them out with leashes.
have them
That
claw
would
your
like,
faces off. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, it was a really, I just love the vibe. Eric Shiner is like such just a great person, and just like very warm. I feel like he
Is Eric
brings this.
Shiner like the director or founder? What is his
Yeah, I think
role?
he's like the president of Powerhouse
Okay.
Arts. I think he and Eric Fischel was saying that they sort of organized it together.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it just he just brings such a great vibe to that place. I think that he's very accessible and very friendly in this way that's doesn't feel like exclusive, like art world kind of like,
Yeah.
you
Well, the
know,
stuff they do there is so interesting because when I went to that
yeah.
art fair there, I walked around and asked a lot of nosy questions. And I learned that like you can also rent spaces at Powerhouse to like manufacture stuff. Like they have like a wood shop, they have a ceramic shop, like they have a
Yes.
metal shop. Like you can
Hmm.
work with fabricators there to like
Hmm.
learn or make art ideas or
Oh,
rent
totally.
spaces. And so that's great out in Gowanus that you can do
Oh,
that.
totally. And ceramics. They have a whole ceramic
Yeah,
studio that you
ceramic.
can pay for a shelf, and you can go in
And they
there.
have really great coffee in their
Mhm.
cafe. I must say, they have really good
Oh, that's important.
espresso.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
really
neat. It's also the architect from the Tate. Did you recognize
now that
the
you mention it,
aesthetic
it's
is,
very obvious.
yeah,
Yeah,
isn't that, yeah. Um, yeah,
I did not know.
I had done a ceramic edition with the, yeah, with their ceramics lab, like
Oh,
their
oh,
fabrication.
okay.
And their print fabricator, I think, is one of the best in the city, and as far
Really?
as does very high profile like artist projects there in their print fabrication. So,
Good to know. Well, that's
yeah.
all was all new to me. So
Yeah.
hopefully, I'll have an opportunity to use something out
Yeah,
there.
yeah. If you live in that area, like the ceramics, I know I have a friend, Jesse Hammerman, who I think maybe uses their ceramics, or I don't
I
know,
mean,
but
for me, Gowanus is a little bit of a stretch from the East
yeah,
Village.
it's a little. I mean, that was the thing. Was like I went there and I was like, I'm talking to Eric Shiner, I'm talking to Eric Fischel. I'd met Eric Shiner before, but I was like trailing him around, like we are going to speak because I came from New Jersey.
Yeah,
Like
you really
sometimes we
have
just have
a
to be
trek
like
to get there.
mercenary about just saying hi to people. It's fine. It's like,
You know I totally get that feeling because when I was living upstate full time and I would go into
hmm
the city for some kind of an event, there was
hmm
definitely more pressure I put on myself. Like, oh, I really have to like talk to
hmm
so and so or such and
yeah,
such because I made such a great effort. I can't just be
yeah,
casual and just show up
yeah,
and leave kind of thing.
yeah.
Because that's important to, if you're really making that kind of a trek, you're like, well, I want to at
Right.
least like
But
feel like I connected with somebody or
The important thing to remember is just like to be yourself and also front load it with like the real intellectual or the reason that you're there, like the reason, the what you like about the work, or,
Yeah.
like if you just like lead with sincerity and like passion for what they're doing and you genuinely are into what you could talk to anyone if you're just, but yeah, that's it, and people are appreciative of that. And I like talking to Eric Fischel because he just was so smart and brilliant about
People
like
are
a lot
much
of
more
the
accessible than we often think that they are.
yeah,
Like, and
yeah,
I love like if someone comes up to me now and it's like, oh, I listened to the podcast. It's such a
yeah,
great way of then starting a conversation and
yeah, totally.
being open to being in the community and talking. I
Hmm.
think most people are
Hmm.
actually really open to
Yeah.
that. If you act like you're supposed to be there and you
Hmm.
act like you
Hmm.
don't take on an air of like, well, I'm little old me, or
Right,
I'm not supposed to be here.
and a genuine interest, not just
Yeah,
like blowing smoke up someone's ass. Like
yeah,
this is awesome, but
yeah.
that
Never
kind
blow smoke up someone's ass because
of,
that definitely know when someone's doing that, and then you're
yeah,
like, yeah, okay,
yeah.
whatever.
What do
Like,
we do?
not
Yeah, this is
interesting.
Well, I have a question for our listeners, who, by the way, when you said that um, Chris Boja was saying he had a unhealthy parasocial, I feel like I have an unhealthy parasocial relationship with our listeners. How about that? Are you guys creeped out that like we love you? No, but I was curious about artists who show in New York, who are showing kind of regularly, who are serious about their practice, who have not had a solo show, and have not and are obviously not represented by a gallery and are not in school. Like, who are those artists? Who are those artists that need a solo show, have never had one, are showing regularly? Because I am so completely out of touch with that downtown or Brooklyn scene or Queens scene or
Yeah,
uptown if there are galleries. Like, and since I don't teach, I don't really know that many artists who are like on the cusp of having a solo.
yeah.
So if you guys, either want to like you can DM me, Gina Beavers, and then I can post some people in the unstretched. But also just like I'm just curious. I'm trying to get a feel for it.
Yeah,
One,
that's a cool idea.
like I'd like to,
Yeah.
yeah. Just let me know because like I'd like to. The only one that I could think of. I know plenty from around the country. Students that I've met, but I don't know so many in New York, which is interesting. I know Davis Arney, who curated a show that I was in with Halsey McKay. He's one, and he's a really interesting painter. But it's so
Yeah.
hard to see art. Like I just tend to go to
I know
shows.
a
I just
lot.
tend to
I
go
know a
to
lot. I
solo
personally know
shows.
a lot of artists who
Yes,
aren't represented, don't have a show, haven't had a show either in a
haven't had a
long
show.
time or haven't
No, no,
had,
no, not in a long time. Just ever. Like they're
or
young
even that
artists.
too. Yeah, no,
Okay, just or they just don't have to be young
yeah,
artists to have never had a
yeah.
solo.
But I'd be
Yeah.
interested for people to sort of be like,
Yeah. Oh, I
hey,
guess you could send them to
look at
Unstretched
me.
too. Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
if you send them to that stretch, then both of us will see
Then
them
both
because
of us will see it. And also, if you want to do yourself or a friend or yeah, I want to
yeah.
see. Yeah. What's up?
Speaking of an artist who doesn't even need that much more exposure, I went to see Lisa Yuskavage's show at David's Werner on 19th
Mm.
Street the other
Oh
day.
yeah.
And I was amazed at how many people were there.
Mm.
And, I mean, not amazed because clearly she's a very well known and very celebrated artist. But what
Mhm.
I thought was kind of funny is there were a lot of like what appeared to be like creepy single straight men there. And I was like, are they there because of like the big weird
Yes.
boobs and like,
Yes. Yes.
and that made me kind of uncomfortable of like that in a way she's kind of
Uh-huh.
making pornography for like
Mhm.
weird straight
I
men. But
mean,
on the other hand, maybe that's a really great strategy to always have a
no.
market to sell
No,
to.
no, 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 no. First of all, have you seen porn lately? Like straight
No.
porn is
Wait,
a
porn? Never.
Straight porn
Why they
is
all
like
look like Lisa Yuskavage
no, it's
paintings?
like a fucking hellhole, and you can find porn by just like breathing on the internet. Like I don't think she's making porn because like there is so much porn and it is so weighted towards straight
Yeah.
men. Like they don't need to be going looking at painting. Like maybe
Yeah.
they're trying to meet some cute girl that's going to show up to
Well,
look at
there
them
were a lot of
paintings.
really cute girls there too, which I
Yeah,
thought was
so
kind like I
maybe
was thinking if I was a straight dude, I would actually
yeah.
go there to meet all these really cute girls. So I
Yeah,
was
that
like,
might
this is
be
interesting. It's like older, straight, sort of single type
yeah.
men, and then all these like cute young like art girls. And I was like,
Yeah,
is this a
yeah.
weird dating scene that I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
tapped into? There were like no gays there, I felt.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the female figure in the history of art, yes, it is highly consumed and consumable, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
However, here's what I say when people ask me about, exploiting the female figure in my work or whatever. Like, I got sent home when I was 7 years old because I wore a t-shirt that was too long. Like it was tucked into my shorts and then it was too long out of my shorts and it covered up my shorts. And at my public school, they said, it looks like she doesn't have any pants on.
Like
And
you
they
were done.
called my mom and I was mortified. I was like a really good student. And I was like, why is this happening to me? What did I do? Women are objectified and shamed for their bodies from the time we are children. And if we want to make art about our bodies, in some ways, it's one of the most fundamental experiences of being like born a woman and living as a woman is being objectified and told you're shameful and all this shit. So if she wants, I would never ever, yeah, I can't.
I mean, I appreciate what she's doing.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's both hilarious and bold and really
Mm-hmm.
weird too.
Yeah.
I'm very beguiled by her paintings
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
first of all, they're very well painted. Like
Oh
they
yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
really
She's like a serious.
beautifully painted. Like
Yes,
I
yes.
just go and look at them if you want to
Yeah.
learn about
Yeah.
painting techniques. But then they're just very weird, like how she
Mhm.
is has sort of had this singular obsession with
Mhm.
like those oversized
Mhm.
perky boobs and like the really
Mhm.
rounded, hip figure, the sort of like bimbo type of fantasy girl
Mhm.
that she's been painting basically for like
Mhm.
30 years as her like
Yeah.
conceptual through line. But it
Mhm.
also is like so radical in that way
Mhm.
because it is kind of like offensive, and I think that's
Mhm.
sort of her point.
Mhm.
It's like
Mhm.
she wants to get a rise out of people in
Right.
that way, and like
Well, I think
and use that
it's
for
also
her
your
own.
what is that figure? Those figures are I read them as sort of avatars for vulnerability and
Yeah,
sassiness and
yeah,
nerve and objectification and they're yeah, it's like it is about a little bit of power and taking a little bit of power because that is in some ways the only power that some women have is or that the culture will give you is sort of hotness and beauty and all this ridiculous shit and it's like inhabiting that as a female painter who's trying to paint in the lineage with like Caravaggio and all the because I saw
yeah,
she posted about Caravaggio. Like that's a significant symbol. It's different to have a woman paint a woman than having a man paint a woman. It just
yeah.
it just is. So sorry, I don't mean did I go off? Did I like
No, I that's why I brought it up because I feel like it's interesting still to talk about because she's been doing
Yes.
that for 30 years, but
Yeah.
it still feels fresh. It still
Yes,
feels like, oh, this is
exactly.
a point of view that has its time and its place irrelevant in our culture, even right now. I think even more so in the Trump era, Lisa
Yeah.
Yuskavage's paintings are even more kind of
Mhm.
ribald and sort of
Mhm.
in your face and make you
Mhm.
think. They definitely, I mean, I was definitely in
Absolutely.
that exhibition a little
Yeah.
like, you know,
Mhm.
stupefied by like, well, what is
Mhm.
this really about? Like, what is
Mhm.
she trying to do? Like,
Mhm.
how is she working with the picture plane? How is she working with space? How is she working with flatness? How is
Mhm.
she working with these women's bodies and figures? And, um, yeah,
Mhm.
I almost feel like I wish someone was doing that more and also in a gay way too. I'd be
Mhm.
interested to see
Interesting. Yeah, to
that.
really push like the palette and the Yeah, more abstract. Yeah. I mean, I guess she
They're
probably
more
knows.
conceptual
Yeah, then,
signifiers than
yeah,
real life people.
exactly.
You know, a lot
Exactly.
of gay artists in the gay figuration movement, you know, which is a really big thing, but they were all figures that sort of
Hmm.
were stand-ins for like real people
Hmm.
or
Right, right,
were
right.
real
Of
people.
course.
Whereas her figures are like
Hmm.
totally conceptual. They're not really real
Yeah. I'd love to
people.
know what if David Hockney is any, there is
Yeah,
something Hockney-esque
yeah.
about the way that she combines these elements too.
Yeah.
I do find it fascinating that she took that kind of keen, the 70s kind of porn, or the
Yes.
keen painting thing, and that still sort of feels, or maybe it's perhaps lost a little bit of its relevance, because at one point it felt like very tied to a type of nostalgia for the 70s and 70s porn, and maybe now it's sort of lost a little bit of that. Like it
I think
doesn't
it's
it doesn't
circled back.
it doesn't
And
need to
now
have. Oh, okay, yeah.
I think it's now more relevant than
Mm-hmm.
maybe it has been in the
Mm-hmm.
past,
Interesting. Yeah,
25,
it
70 years.
doesn't feel as nostalgic to me, or it doesn't feel as sort of like a Gen Xer going to the thrift store, to bring it back to that. It doesn't feel that way to me
Well, we
anymore.
should
Where
go
it felt,
thrifting in New Jersey. I'll come down and we can go to some.
yes, totally.
When
I
I
can
was in
take
high
you to some
school, we
good.
used to go down to this place called Udelco, which was
Mm.
in sort of like northern Bergen County or something, because it was like the best thrifting. And
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if that's still around.
There's a good one, yeah, near the water, like in Passaic. But today I went. Okay, this is lame. I went this morning, because it's 25% off,
Oh my
and
God.
I'm like
Did you
trying to
want a
find
senior discount?
member discount, but I'm trying to find studio shorts for the
Oh,
summer, and I was like, but I found this little, I think it's a makeup case, or else it's like a jewelry, like velvet thing, and in gold cursive it says Gina, Gina, on it.
oh wow. Well, that's a
And I
very
was like,
common New Jersey name. I hate to tell you. You're gonna
I didn't
find a lot of
I
Gina
didn't
stuff
think
floating
about
around.
that. Oh my God, I totally didn't put that
Yeah,
together, because I've
yeah.
never seen my name. I told the lady at checkout, this is my name. She was like, oh God, like what?
She's like, oh
The,
yeah, baby.
the Ginas. That's really
Yeah.
rare, honey, in Jersey. Anyway,
All
anyway, we
right.
should go.
We
Yeah,
should
well,
wrap
this
it
is
all
really
up.
fun.
Okay.
Okay, have a
Until the
great,
next
well, I
time,
guess it's
folks.
a half a week, because we'll probably record not too long from now. So,
Yeah, well, we'll see.
yeah,
We'll throw it
yeah,
together.
yeah.
And look
Okay.
forward to our new music that we'll be introducing.
Yes, yes, that will be happening
That
soon.
will be fun.
Yes,
All right.
exciting. Okay,
Bye
bye,
bye.
Tim. Bye. What am I doing? How do I stop? There.